Welcome to the End of Innocence. I'm your host, John Young. As Jim Garrison winds down his investigation and draws closer to trial, he still continues to take body blows from the national media. While doing research to prepare for the Clay Shaw trial that we'll cover next week, I found a few archived videos from 1967 that I thought were interesting. The first video is from a pioneer and hero in the research community, Mark Lane. At a time when it wasn't popular to stand up and defend Garrison, Mark Lane did exactly that in this video.
Mr. Lane, in view of the latest developments, especially in New Orleans, I wonder if you could tell us what you think about this new investigation started by Mr. Garrison.
I think it may very well be the most significant event in terms of an investigation since the assassination took place. The rest of us have been able to raise questions about the situation. In my book, I make reference to the matter of some strange meetings which took place in New Orleans and activities which emanated from there, evidently. But I could do little more than raise questions. When I tried to speak with the chief of the New Orleans Intelligence Bureau, Lieutenant Martello, he refused to speak with me. Dean Andrews, who was an attorney in New Orleans, who knew Oswald, who knew of Oswald's relationships with Cubans in the area, agreed to speak with me and to participate in a filmed interview for our film. But when we arrived at his office, he said he had received word from Washington that he would be in serious trouble. He might even suffer physical harm if he did grant an interview to us. So we could do little more than raise these questions, but Mr. Garrison, of course, can make arrests and can compel testimony and can cause a trial to take place, and evidently he was planning to do this.
Where did this word from Washington come from?
That's all that Mr. Andrews told us. He testified before the commission, Mr. Andrews, said that Oswald had come to see him about changing the nature of his discharge from a less than honorable discharge to an honorable discharge. And Andrews said that the FBI did not like that statement. And in fact, when Andrews testified before the commission, he said, when the FBI is on you, they're like the plague, eternal cancer, never-ending. And he said because of that, he finally said to the FBI, all right, write whatever you want about me, but please just leave me alone. And he capitulated. That was his testimony before the Warren Commission, but the Commission did not consider that to be significant enough to investigate further. Evidently, Mr. Garrison is a bit more curious than the Commission was.
How do you think you can help Garrison, or how do you plan to help him?
Well, I've been at this now for more than 3 years. I've made many trips to Dallas, 9 trips now. We've had a squad of independent volunteer investigators who've gone to Dallas, more than 25 now, for the last more than 3 years. We've compiled a mass of information. Some of it led to dead ends insofar as our investigation was concerned because we could not go any further if the witness refused to speak with us. I'll make all of this information, everything I have, everything I know about this case, available to Mr. Garrison. He seems to be interested in the matter, and I hope it will be of some use to him.
Mm-hmm. What is your feeling, based on the knowledge that you have now, on the death in New Orleans of this man, David Ferry?
Well, it does seem strange that so many of the witnesses who had information related to the assassination of the president or to the murder of Officer Tippit have died mysterious and strange deaths, and many of them were violent deaths. It seems strange that Mr. Ferry, who was evidently about to be arrested by Mr. Garrison, took his own life just a week before that arrest was to be made.
It's your understanding that he did take his own life?
Well, this is the statement that I hear from New Orleans. Of course, I have not conducted any investigation. I hear that Mr. Garrison has made that statement. He has conducted, at this point, a cursory examination in any event. In any event, we understand he's dead.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route. There's numerous people running up the hill alongside Elm Street, there by the Simmons Freeway. Several police officers are rushing up the hill at this time. Stand by.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
This is Justin from Dallas. Homicide Chief Captain Will Fritz said today the assassination case against Lee Harvey Oswald is cinched. He said flatly, this is the man that killed President Kennedy. 24-year-old Lee Harvey Oswald.
Come on, man. President. No, they're taking me in because of the fact that I live in Missouri. I'm just a patsy. President. Shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's the man with a gun.
This next clip you're going to hear is a very rare interview with Raymond Cummings. Cummings was a cab driver in Dallas. He claims that one night he picked up David Ferry, Lee Oswald, and possibly Clay Shaw, and took them to Jack Ruby's Carousel Club.
In 1963, the upstairs of this building was the Carousel Club, a burlesque house operated by Jack Ruby. A Dallas Utility Company employee, who was then a part-time cab driver, said that during this period, he once picked up Lee Harvey Oswald, David W. Ferry, and an unidentified older man and brought them to the club. The witness, a former Texas peace officer named Raymond Cummings, was interrogated recently by investigators for New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison. Cummings has told the Dallas District Attorney's Office that he telephoned Garrison after reading that David Ferry had never been in Dallas. Cummings claimed, in fact, that he had known Ferry in Dallas even prior to picking him up. Ferry, a former airlines pilot, was found dead in his New Orleans apartment soon after Garrison's investigation of him began. Cummings also said that on another occasion, he picked up Lee Harvey Oswald at a Dallas bus station and took him to Irving. Tomorrow, Cummings and his lawyer will meet with Assistant Dallas District Attorney Bill Alexander to make a formal statement about these matters. Cummings is represented by Dallas attorney Frank Wright. Today, neither Cummings nor Wright would talk with newsmen. This is James Kerr reporting.
During that period, I picked up a man in my cab who I later found to be Lee Harvey Oswald. We talked at length on the way to the address he had given me. Several months later, and to the best of my memory, in early 1963, I was driving my taxi and was stopped by three men. I recognized one of the men as being Lee Harvey Oswald, and we spoke about our previous meeting. I have recently learned from seeing photos that a second man was David Ferry. I cannot identify the third party. At their request, I took the three men to the Carousel Club on Commerce Street in Dallas, Texas, and they left my cab.
Why did you come forward then?
Because of the publicity it was in this here, and due to the fact that I did, at that time, fear for my family.
Having been a policeman, didn't you trust the police to protect you? And a former Marine, the FBI, and other government bodies?
Well, Mr. Coleman, he also knew about the entertainer at the Carousel, I imagine, who claimed he saw someone in the place and what happened to him afterward. He had a lot of harassment, and I think he wound up in Illinois somewhere. You knew about him, didn't you?
Did you think if you waited 3 years that you wouldn't get any publicity?
Well, I was hoping not.
This next interview is with Perry Raymond Russo, who would turn out to be one of Jim Garrison's star witnesses in the trial. Russo claims he was with Ferry one night in October of '63, just about a month before the assassination, and Ferry was talking about that Kennedy would be killed and it wouldn't be long.
In late September or during October, a month right prior to the Kennedy assassination in November, Dave Ferry had occasion to come over the house on several instances, and I went to his place and just passed him, and he made specific references that in talking about Kennedy, he said, we will get him, and it won't be very long. Now, the last time I can remember him saying that was sometime in October, but he was obsessed with that idea.
Did he ever mention Lee Harvey Oswald's name?
No.
No conversation at all about it?
No, I had never heard of Oswald until the
television assassination.
Why have you never said anything about this before? Didn't it strike you that it might have some connection?
When the assassination, of course, caught me by surprise and caught everyone else, I would guess, when it finally was over and a Warren Commission was set up, and it tended to go and examine all of the details, and it made claims that it was going to do everything extensively. Then I left it to the professionals, and they were supposed to come out with a verdict. Then they came out with a verdict that Oswald was the only man, so I forgot it. Then Garrison began his probe and subsequently got in the newspapers in New Orleans and then later on television everywhere. And in that probe, he said that there was a conspiracy and he could prove it. It still didn't ring a bell anywhere along the line. It was far from me that I would have ever have met a person. I would have been a conspirator to kill the President of the United States. Thereafter, when Dave Ferry died, the name, I still doubted if it was the same guy. They said it's just another Dave Ferry. But when I saw his picture in the paper, then I knew it was the same man, and I had just as well say something to someone. And I wrote the district attorney the next day, and he should have gotten it Friday. And I saw the pictures this week.
You haven't talked with any federal agents or anybody from the Warren Commission about it?
No one's contacted me. Actually, the first time I made a remark about this was today, and to anyone in public.
This next interview is with Jim Garrison by a local New Orleans television reporter. This interview was done right before the start of the trial, and Jim Garrison makes some startling revelations that would come out in the trial.
Garrison operates on the second floor of the criminal courts building with a small, partly amateur staff. His investigation is largely financed by private businessmen and seems puny compared to the vast Warren Commission probe he's trying to overthrow. Yet he obtained an indictment against his first suspect, Clay Shaw. The key witness was Perry Russo, a young insurance salesman who says he overheard Shaw, Oswald, and Ferry plotting the assassination in New Orleans 2 months before it took place. He was hypnotized to help him remember. A supporting witness is a Negro convict and dope addict. The Shaw case is only part of Garrison's conspiracy theory, which is, briefly, that a well-financed right-wing group staged what amounted to a coup d'etat by killing Kennedy, and the U.S. administration hushed it up. It begins with the assumption that Lee Oswald knew Jack Ruby, the man who was to kill him.
Let me first make a reference to Oswald's address book, which is in volume 16, XVI, and it's Commission Exhibit 18. Now, if you turn to page 40 in this volume, page 40 being page 40 of XVI, you will see the number written in Oswald's handwriting, PE 81951. PE 81951. If you go to XXV 25, the Jack Ruby's phone calls, you will find that on June 10th, 1963, Jack Ruby called PE 81951. That's the same phone number that Lee Oswald has in his address book as printed in volume 16 of the exhibits. Perhaps the more significant example to us is the fact that Ruby and Oswald have been seen together, but I cannot go into that at this time because we get into an area of evidence which I'm not free to comment on. But
you have witnesses, however, who have said they've seen Ruby and Oswald together.
Oh, yes.
In Dallas or here?
In more than one city, if you don't mind my putting it that way. Now, another connection to come from another direction is the fact that Jack Ruby had a business acquaintance named Bertha Cheek, and there were several real estate transactions in which Jack Ruby and Bertha Cheek worked together, and they know each other in a business way, and that's been established without any question, because you can even find that in the Warren report. Now, Bertha Cheek has a sister named Earlene Roberts. Earlene Roberts was the landlady where Lee Oswald was living when he was killed at 1026 North Beckley. So you have there the case of Bertha Cheek being a business associate of Jack Ruby. Bertha's sister is Earlene Roberts. Lee Oswald is staying at Earlene Roberts' house when he's arrested. So again, there's another correlation.
Isn't this just a coincidence, however, rather than something more solid like somebody who'll swear they've been seen together?
Any one of these, actually, this is what you call circumstantial evidence. And your question is certainly a good question to ask, but the answer is that circumstantial evidence is actually, to man who's practiced law, circumstantial evidence is actually more binding and harder to get away from than witness evidence, because sometimes the eyes can be mistaken. You say, is this coincidence? Any one of these factors of correlation could be coincidence, but the steady accumulation of them is not. To sum it up, it is impossible that they did not know each other. How wide is a conspiracy? It is finite in the sense that it has limits. It is not such a huge thing that it is unsolvable. On the other hand, it is considerably wider, I think, than the average person might have assumed. The best way to describe the conspiracy, and I guess I'll have to be blunt about it, come to this, the major factor in the conspiracy which made it work was the use of Minutemen.
How many Minutemen, Mr. Garrison, are involved as far as you know?
Well, I can't possibly speculate on that without hurting opposition, except to say that there were Minutemen in the Dallas area and some in Louisiana that coordinated on this operation as individuals. And it was extremely well financed. There were individuals in the Dallas Police Department, like a grapevine coming outside of the building, which had relationships with each other, and also relationships with the individuals who killed the president, who killed Tippit, and who killed Oswald. And this structure is what allowed it to occur so effectively, because it was a pre-existing secret structure of individuals who had trained with arms, who were militantly opposed to what President Kennedy was doing. This was the ambush that the president was in. He was shot from at least 3 different directions, which is perfectly obvious from the medical testimony, although the final conclusive evidence has been concealed, naturally, the autopsy photographs. But he was shot from at least 3 different directions in the ambush, and there was no way for him to have survived.
Well, you maintain that Oswald did not fire a shot that day. Why, if Oswald was part of the plot, didn't he fire too?
Well, first of all, Oswald was not part of the plot. Secondly, he did not fire a shot at anyone, not only on that day. He never fired a shot in the preceding year or in the preceding 2 years or since he got out of the Marines, as far as anyone knows. A number of the individuals who accomplished the shooting were previously connected with the Central Intelligence Agency, many of them connected in their training in Florida. And those are some of the individuals whose names we have, and I judge by now they know we have their names. The thing which seemed to have bothered the United States and caused a major world power to participate in such a lowly fraud, such an indescribably low fraud, was the fear that the reputation of the United States or the Central Intelligence Agency would somehow be damaged when it came out that former CIA employees were involved in the assassination, and that individuals with control over Oswald, CIA employees, were involved, and that Oswald was working for the CIA. So the United States government participated in one of the greatest lies in history in order to save its face. One of the files that you cannot look at, grounds of national security, is entitled Oswald's Availability to Information About the U-2. Oswald's availability to information about the U-2. Now, this is supposed to be just a young man who was just another Marine, although we found out now that he was taught Russian by the United States government. And he's supposed to be a man who was a communist defector, and you just couldn't rely on him, and he's just so unreliable. And all of a sudden we find that he has had access to information about the U-2. I never had any access to information about the U-2. I'd never seen a U-2. What's the difference between me and Lee Oswald? The difference is he was working for the Central Intelligence Agency. Oswald is always shepherded. He's even shepherded when he goes down into Texas by an individual who just left Montreal, Canada. But again, in New Orleans...
Who was this individual?
Well, this individual is a man who used the name at the time of John Howard Bowen, but his real name is Albert Osborne. But anyway, in New Orleans, the custodial group includes Mr. Ferry, and he's one of the people who was helping to let Oswald be de-Dallasized, and secondly, acquire the identification as a communist, in quotes.
The number of people who have died since the assassination.
It's quite clear that there is a systematic program of murder of individuals who are likely to tell the truth to an investigative government agency, which at the moment is only us. There's no question about the murders having occurred, and I expect that there will be more, probably.
Where do you think this investigation is finally going to lead?
It is going to show the world that President Kennedy was killed as a result of a conspiracy, a very carefully organized plan in which individuals whose relationship with each other was largely secret worked together in a coordinated way. Individuals who had a fusion of motives to fight the holy war against communism and to assassinate the president who, in their judgment, in their, I think, twisted judgment, concluded that President Kennedy was selling out to the communists. This is the sort of view they had.
Critics of District Attorney Jim Garrison say that it will be more a three-ring circus than a trial at the criminal court building in Orleans Parish. But defenders of Garrison argue that he has a case, and a good one. The issue will be tested in a well-guarded courtroom. No one gets in without special passes. There are seats for 170 spectators. 14 countries will be represented, including the Soviet Union. Even closed-circuit television cameras have been installed for security reasons. One of the two principal actors in the drama is Jim Garrison, the district attorney, a flamboyant man his detractors call the Jolly Green Giant. Little is seen of him these days, not even in court. His last public appearance was in December. The other protagonist is Clay Shaw, a retired businessman and real estate dealer. 55 years old, a chain smoker, Shaw has consistently proclaimed his innocence. If he's convicted, he can get 1 to 20 years in jail. Finally, a key witness is Perry Russo. He testified at a preliminary hearing that he heard Shaw plotting with Lee Harvey Oswald and a man named David Ferry to kill President Kennedy. It happened, Russo said, during a party at Ferry's home in September of 1963, a party in the second-floor apartment. The state admitted Russo had been hypnotized before his testimony. The defense contended he was left with a post-hypnotic suggestion. Garrison charged Oswald and Ferry met again at a seawall off Lake Pontchartrain in the summer of 1963. Garrison's witness there was a man who admitted he was a dope addict, about to give himself a fix. The presiding judge is Edward Haggerty.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Judge. Well, we hope we get him today so we can start the trial tomorrow. I think we will get him today. All I have to say. Thank you.
For the next several weeks, the jury will live in a motel a mile from the courthouse. Forbidden newspapers or news programs, allowed only emergency calls home. Judge Haggerty...
Over the years, Jim Garrison has been ridiculed by, of course, the national media and, quite frankly, some assassination researchers. But in my opinion, Jim Garrison is a hero. He saw that the American people was not being told the truth about one of the worst days in the history of our country. Maybe over the years, if we had more courageous Americans like Jim Garrison, we wouldn't have an old man sitting in the White House running things, while he should be at a retirement home somewhere in Florida. We'll see you next week.
Try to behave for you. Now I'm a digging a grave for you. It was all I could do. Find a way back home, make everything new. But I wish it was true. Father, well, I gave my soul to you. I came in blindfolded for you. It was all that I knew. Open your arms and I'll fly out of hell up to you. I wish it was true. Outside there, don't you know? you say, it's what you do. Just keep wishing your wishes are true. With your dreams, they're reality. There's no pain, there's no misery. Just polish the blood and the bruise. There's just no way you can lose. Well, I wish it was true. Country, where I was a soldier for you. I did what you asked me to. It was wrong and you knew. Country, now I'm just a stranger to